Professor, could I ask you a couple questions too? I read your book, Thinking in Pictures.
Okay.
And I know that you talk a lot about how you are able to relate to the way you believe that cows...
Well, animals have to think in pictures or think in sounds or think in smells because there's no other way the brain can store the information.
You concentrate on cattle, but do...
Dogs and cats would be the same thing.
Same thing.
Now, dogs are going to be more into smell. But you see, it's still sensory-based.
Yes.
It's not word-based. You see, they have to think in pictures, think in smells.
What about, does that translate to the way that cows behave to horses? I mean, can you if you design a facility for cattle, do you have to design a different facility for horses?
Well, you can use the same facility for both. But since cattle are a visual thinker, if the cattle are handled exclusively on horseback, they might get really tame and accustomed to that and have a very small flight zone where you can get within maybe 3 feet of them on a horse. But if you walk out in the field, they'll run away and scatter. You see a man on the ground and a man on a horse, that's a different picture. Now you can train cattle for both. And I think cattle should be trained for both. Because I've seen some very dangerous things happen where the cattle go to an auction, a meat plant, or a feed yard. People try to move them on foot and they're crashing off the fences. And so in order to not have problems further down the supply chain, they really should get accustomed to people on foot. And that can be done. All you have to do is walk out amongst them and you gradually can get accustomed to that. I'd rather be doing it out in the pasture to get them trained to that rather than do it in the corrals. Because the problem that you have in the corrals is if the cattle have a 50-foot flight zone to a person on foot and you go in a 20-foot wide pen, that can be rather dangerous.
Have you seen that what you talk about and what you suggest being put into place and act on farms and ranches? Have you seen an effect?
Yes, people are getting more and more interested. What I'm saying is the percentage of people that I would call good was maybe only 10 or 15%, 25 years ago. That's probably 40 or 50% now. There's still a bottom 10% that's really bad, but the percentage of people that have gotten good, I think that has really increased.
When you go out onto farms or ranches, what is the most, not important, what is the thing that you see most that you would like to have changed?
Well, the first thing we got to do is just get people to calm down. There are still people out there screaming and yelling and whistling. And the research is very clear. When you scream and yell at cattle, that's very stressful. Calm down, stop waving your arms, because once the cattle get all scared and upset, it takes half an hour for them to calm down. So the secret is, don't get them excited in the first place. And I'll give you a few other little tips. Fill your crowd pen that leads up to your single file chute half full. The other thing is, use your crowd pen as a passing through pen. Wait until there's space in your lead up chute, and then just bring the cattle in and pass them through the crowd pen. That also works when you're loading a truck. Get your truck backed up, get all your gates in place, and then you just bring the cattle up, pass through the crowd pen, walk right up the truck ramp. Because if you bring them up in the crowd pen and let them stand in the crowd pen, they're going to turn around on you. And you also want to lay out a crowd pen so that it's laid out in such a manner that it takes advantage of that tendency to go back to where they came from. Like in my curved designs, I have a full half-circle crowd pen. So the animals come around and go back to where they came from. You build a tub, you need to make a full half circle. So you take advantage of that tendency to go back to where they came from.
Now I got another ignorant question to ask. Are bulls different than cows in terms of how to handle them and what you suggest?
Well, bulls, first of all, people need to understand the warnings that a bull can give. Obviously, if his head is down, he's pawing the ground, you know he's going to attack. But you also need to recognize the broadside threat. And he'll do that before he does the pawing of the ground. He'll turn sideways to show you how big he is and kind of hunch up his neck like, flexing the biceps. And a bull that deliberately broadside threats a person is a bull you probably need to just get rid of. Now, beef bulls on average are much safer than dairy bulls. Let me explain to you why. It has to do with a mistaken identity issue. Beef bulls are reared out there on the mama cow. They grow up with all the other cattle and they know that they are cattle. So when the bull calf gets sexually mature at 18 months to 2 years of age, and he wants to prove he's the big man of the herd, he goes out and he does it to other cattle rather than towards people. It's not a tameness issue, it's a mistaken identity issue. So if you want to raise a tame bull for show, yeah, you can raise it on a tame cow herd. You can go out and pet the calf and pet the cow, that's fine. But he's growing up in a cattle social group. So if you get an orphan calf, I'd recommend making a student's 4-H project out of it. Because this is a bull thing, it's not a steer thing. You see, a steer you can raise by itself, a heifer calf you can raise by herself. She gets imprinted to people, but it doesn't seem to matter. But the males, and this applies to anyone who might raise a buck deer fawn or a male llama fawn, is the male, intact males of all of the grazing type animals need to be reared in a social group. And the dairy calves are more dangerous because they're hand reared. Now one of the ways to make the dairy calf safer, bull calf safer, is to raise them in a group of calves. Always keep them in with a group of animals. But he'll never be as safe as a bull calf that's reared on a mother cow in a group of other cattle.
I know you guys, I could have 100 questions.
But that's
Professor,
a really
thank you very
important
much.
safety thing for bulls.
Thank you.
Yeah, because if you just, let's say you have an orphan calf and you can't graft it back on the cow, it's a male calf, let's just make a steer out of him right now and not have a problem.
But what happens if sorry.
What happens if
Well,
what?
no, let's say that I'm a rancher out there and I listen to you and I think, I'm going to put that into effect. Are my cows already too far behavior, imprinted in the behavior that will they change?
If you change your handling?
Yes.
No, it's what you're asking. All right, so what you're asking is, let's say my handling's been terrible
Yes.
and I want to change my handling. Can I change my cows?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes, you can definitely change your cows. It's going to take some effort. You're going to have to walk out in the pasture with them, quietly walking with them. You can gradually get them trained to come into the corrals. They can be changed, but it will take effort.